Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Okay, so I think I was brushing my teeth this morning, part of my hygiene process, and for some reason the topic came up in my head about where there's smoke. And you know how I do what I do when I do. I usually will spin it another way. And that's what I'm going to do with this topic this morning, where there's smoke. You know, the whole phrase is where there's smoke, there's fire. And usually what that phrase has meant to me over the years is that, if you see small kindlings of something, small kindlings, yes, kindlings, that's the right word, of something, there's something on the tail end, or something's a coming, or something's a brewing beneath the surface. I think I said that right. And that's what that means to me. But I want to swing this another way this morning. I remember being younger and, my mother, I would be listening to my mother talk on the telephone or whatever. And whether it be deep, profound conversation, mind-stimulating conversation, or if it's just gossip. My mother and my grandmother and the other elders of the family had the innate ability to be able to foretell what was going to happen with a particular situation. One incident in particular, when we were growing up, we grew up in a multi-unit dwelling tenement, and the apartments were A through G, or A through A, B, C, D. Yeah, A through F. I'm sorry. You count from A to F, how many that is, and that was 12 floors up. And then there was a roof. But we grew up, and it was housing on each floor. And that's how we grew up. That's what that was. And so there was two ladies. And one lady had a guy, a man. A husband. I don't know if they were married or whatever, but it was one particular lady and another lady on another floor was seeing the gentleman on the side. Now, living in such close proximity that we lived in, right? The way we lived, people know. It wasn't hard to figure out what was going on. Well, one particular day, my mom was on the phone having talk about this situation, about this love triangle, have you. And my mother made a prediction, right? And if you're with me this morning, stay with me, because I'm going to take it from this and then I'm going to mushroom out to something else. So I need for you to stay with me on this. And my mother made a prediction that day, and she said, you know what? Somebody gonna get hurt in that situation. Somebody gonna get hurt in that situation because, you don't be messing around with nobody. I don't remember the conversation verbatim, but somebody gonna get hurt in that situation. Well, my mother's words hit a mark and then some. A few weeks later, the coroner was coming in our vicinity, coming where we lived to pick up a body. That body was the body of one of those women. You know what I mean? And I don't know which woman it was. I don't remember. It's all a fog, but I do remember the major particulars of the scenario. Somebody died. And it wasn't a long time after I heard my mother make that comment on the phone with whoever she was talking to. And so, speed fast today, seeing that made such an impression on me. One, from a fundamental mind of a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, how old I was. I wasn't over the age of 10, and I definitely wasn't an adult. I said, my mother is so smart. How did my mother get to be so smart? How does she know that? Right? Even going as far as to say, my mother must be God. And that's how I felt about the relationship that I had with my mother, and please hold on to that, because we're talking about the impressions that we get from the people that we interact with, or the places that we go in our relationship. So I need for you to hold on to that, because when I get to the next part of the feed, later on down in the feed, I ain't gonna say I'm gonna do some magic, but I'm gonna do a little something with that. And so I remember making that impression upon me. And I got older and I started experiencing experiences, and I don't remember exactly the age or the first time that I was a human oracle, right? That means basically that I was able to foresee something or see something down the road. I don't remember exactly when that happened for me, but I'm going to tell you this. It happened one day. And when it happened that day, it was like an aha moment. I said, wait a minute, this is so familiar, but I wasn't able to make the connection. I wasn't able to make the connection from that experience that I was experiencing to the one from years before with my mother. Right? I wasn't able to make the connection, but I continued on to live life, and I continued on to make these predictions. I continued on to, and what that mushroomed into, because I remember, and I talked with you guys about my grandmother, who gave me the most gems, right? In such a short period of time, the most gems, and not being able to make those three connections. Right? And I'm experiencing stuff, and I'm able to say one day, this is not going to end good. Oh, this is going to be pretty good. This is going to be pretty fascinating. This job ain't about nothing. This job is going to be pretty promising. I'm going to retire from this job. When most of the times I made the mark, and sometimes I did not, with regards to the outcomes. And, so we're here, and I'm a lot older than what I was from the first time that I experienced that experience. And guess what? I found, because when they say where there's smoke, there's fire, a lot of times people don't want to address. I don't want to address the fire, because it's usually. It was usually a negative experience that was a come-in from that smoke. But I want to say this, whether positive or negative consequences are coming, I need that smoke. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if there's nothing going on, that means that I'm totally oblivious to the obvious that's happening in my life. That means I'm dead up from the neck up. And at this age and stage of the game, I can't afford to be doing that, if that makes sense. I can't afford, there's a price to be paid for that type of recklessness. That means that I have my hand on the helm of my life. I have my hand on the helm of the wheel, but I'm not paying attention. And I'm looking out into the abyss, and I'm cognizant of all that's in front of me. But my sight, I'm able to see what's right in front of me, but I have no vision. And that's what I was seeing when I saw my mom speak on the phone that day. I saw a semblance of vision, of wisdom, of mother wit, that stuff is so important when I'm working in my relationships. Even with my son, I lagged the ability for a number of years because the experience of motherhood was so overwhelming. I could not see the patterns that were developing, that were handed down from my mom and her mom, stuff that was tainted legacy. I couldn't see it. But once I was able to step back and realize that motherhood was a privilege, right? It was an opportunity. It was a blessing. It was an opportunity to be able to share with the world that which I was blessed with, and not just take that responsibility so lightly. if that makes sense. Like, I took my responsibility lightly. I became overwhelmed with it. I had succumbed to a lot of different behaviors that were maladapted, that ran the risk of putting my son in a very vulnerable place of being preyed upon by negative forces. Right? Once I got away from all that, I cleared my pathway to be able to objectively and strategically guide him, like it says in the Bible, guide him and teach him in the ways that he is to go so that he won't stray away from that. Like, I was able to do these things and help him to blossom into a young man, right? With manners and different things that would help him prosper and do more than just survive, but live and thrive. Does that make sense? And I was able to do that strategically. And that it wasn't until I started noticing the smoke. And what was the smoke? I'm glad that you asked. The smoke that I'm talking about is like some maladaptive behaviors, some negligence, some abuse, some verbal and physical, stuff that was handed down to me, stuff that was possibly handed down to my mom, and then like almost at a place where I was handing it down to my son. But that chain had to be broken. Like, I broke that chain by one day allowing myself to be, because I wanted to breed an environment in my household where my son could, like, I didn't want my son to be the kid to be like, oh, children are to be seen and not heard. And then I stifled his voice. I allowed him to say whatever it is he needed to say to me, because I knew in my infallible state that I wasn't all that great. So one day when he said to me, do you have to yell all the time? And people, my contemporaries who were also adults who would witness our relationship, they would to me, they would be like, he's a bit too grown. But I'm so grateful for that. And I'm going to tell you why, because my son wanted to be a man. Right? I know from my experience, when they said children are to be seen and not heard, stay in a child's place, right? You too young to be, when I wanted to talk about my feelings or how I was feeling, you too young to have feelings, like that stifled me. Like, in many instances right here, like, even though you're looking at, a grown woman who is, with a decent command of the English language, college educated, right? Degree, upper grad educated, right? There's still this little girl inside that was stifled because of those verbally abusive statements. They stunt growth. Words stunt. They burn. And so when I get that, my son wanted to be a man. He wanted to grow up. He wanted to flourish. And I looked at that smoke, right? Once I tried that on my son's relationship and my son's relationship, guess what happened? I felt good about that. Good smoke, right? So there's white smoke and there's dark smoke, right? And I akin the white smoke to the good consequences, the good stuff. That if I see white smoke, that usually means that there's something good. There's a good fire burning over there, right? When I see dark smoke, right, there's something that, you might want to, prepare yourself for that. And what I'm saying to you this morning, guys, is that seeing that smoke prepares me. If I'm on my game, it prepares me for what is there. Because there's something there. Whatever direction you see the smoke coming from, there's a fire burning over there. Is it something that needs to be put out, or is there something that needs to be fanned? Is there something that needs to be fanned? And that's where I'm at today. Like, there's a lot of fires in my life right now where there's smoke all around me, white smoke. And guess what's happening? I wanted to burn down those prospective houses with good, passionate stuff. The stuff where there is black smoke, of course. There are some houses where there's black smoke coming from. I want those houses to burn down too. Thought you was going to say, I want to put them out. No, there's some houses in my life, some mansions even, right? Acres of it that I need burnt down. So there's smoke there. Why? Because I'm evolving into a person who's growing, and there was no friction there before because I had just allowed stuff to just happen. And now I'm at the place where I want that stuff to burn down. Yeah. So where's your smoke today? And it could be whatever color smoke you want. If you like pink smoke, great. If you like orange smoke, great. If you like gray smoke, great. Like, you assign your colors to your smoke. Do you need to put it out? Do you need it to run a blaze? Only you can answer those questions. So I'm here. It's Friday. I want to share some good. I feel good about this particular prospect, and I think I'm gonna touch on that next week. But I'm not gonna bog you guys down. I gotta get into work with no watch on. I gotta get into work. Mask, hand sanitizer, wash your hands. We are links in a chain, and we are only strong as our weakest link. There are those of you who are vaccinated, great. Those who are not, right? No judgment here. However, bear in mind that we are links in a chain. Let's take care of each other. We all we got. So I'm here. You guys have a good day. You deserve it. You definitely deserve it if you are pursuing it. Remember, where there's smoke,